I want to bring in now Chamber of Digital Commerce founder, CEO, Perry-Ann Boring. All right, Perry-Ann, I want to begin with the efforts of the government to derail Bitcoin, these central bank digital currencies. I'm reading now where more and more of them are saying they're failing, that they can't live up to the hype, and there's no interest.
Yeah, governments have really been putting their thumb on the scale of innovation and trying to hold back crypto digital assets, including Bitcoin. But technological progress can only be held back in the short term. In the long term, technology is moving forward. And that's what we're seeing in the markets. We're seeing, we saw today, El Salvador put out a statement saying their Bitcoin investments are in the black. You mentioned Argentina just elected a pro-Bitcoin president. So we'll expect to see some moves there. We're also hearing rumors that multiple sovereign wealth funds are planning to make very significant investments in Bitcoin. So there is definitely this dichotomy happening between the open source money and closed source money of CBDCs, and we're getting a rally right now.
Senator Warren and I have authored the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act that represents a step in the right direction. Again, I think that this is a light touch. The first thing we did is we went to the American Bank Association and said, help us craft this. And I don't know if you saw Senator Warren's hearing with Jamie Dimon yesterday, but Mr. Dimon said basically, in his opinion, crypto was only a tool for criminals. And I think, again, it's that light touch by the federal government as opposed to a heavy touch as well. That's about all I know about crypto.
Senator Elizabeth Warren has introduced bipartisan legislation that would ban Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in the United States. We cannot underestimate her efforts. They've already gained the support from almost 20% of the U.S. Senate. Senator Warren claims that the bill's purpose is to strengthen the anti-money laundering requirements for cryptocurrencies. However, the bill does not demonstrate a technical understanding or knowledge of how digital assets actually work. This legislation is nothing less than an effort to kill cryptocurrencies in the US, and it's a part of her larger agenda to pave the way for a central bank digital currency. So, why is the United States Senate trying to ban cryptocurrencies?
Again, I think that this is a light touch.
This is Senator Roger Marshall. He is the lead Republican sponsor of the bill who, at a private event, admits that the bill was crafted by the American Bankers Association.
The first thing we did is we went to the American Bank Association and said, help us craft this. We want crypto to be held up at the same standard as you are. That's about all I know about crypto. Okay.
This is the same industry who spends up to $100 million a year lobbying Washington. Bankers like Jamie Dimon.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Okay, well, that's what we're going to talk about.
While Jamie Dimon is testifying in front of Congress in favor of Elizabeth Warren's bill that would ban Bitcoin, his company is operating its own blockchain network that does over $1 billion a day in transactions. This is yet another example of the regulatory capture that is far too common in Washington, D.C. It is critical that the United States leads in the deployment of advanced technologies, including cryptocurrencies, and does not get caught in the churn of Washington's special interest groups. Make your voice heard today. Don't let Congress ban crypto.
So what's actually happening here, people? Every so often, and very rarely, a clash of old and new cultures brought about by technology changes civilization. Cryptocurrencies is one of these technologies, and probably the most dramatic to have occurred in human history since the invention of fire. Why? Because cryptocurrencies free the individual from the yoke of currency controlled by governments, which controls us and our lives. Now, cryptocurrency is coming. It's out of the box. It's being used, and privacy coins are here. Governments see what's coming, and it terrorizes them. Governments will not be able to collect taxes when everyone is using privacy coins for their currency. And it is happening now. I'm on the forefront of this. I was the first to voice this ultimate reality which is here upon us now. Governments will disappear as we know them. They will shrink of necessity because they will not be able to fund the excess that they are doing now. I warned of this. I'm on the stage constantly saying it's coming, and I also say it's a good thing. It brings us freedom. For the first time in human history within a government, freedom, financial freedom, which is the foundation of others. So I am being cut down as one of the tallest trees in this forest as a warning to everyone else. And I'll be coming on later with others to explain what's going to be happening with my campaign.
It feels like this anti-AML bill that is being helmed really by Elizabeth Warren is picking up steam. What is the chamber hearing about this? What do you think?
Well, first we need to call it what it is. Senator Elizabeth Warren's anti-money laundering bill would effectively ban cryptocurrencies in the United States. This would be detrimental to our national security. Open source money, blockchain-based technology are advanced technologies. It is critical for our national security that we are at the forefront of leading in advanced technologies. And by banning them, which is what this bill does, it puts our head in the sand. It lets our adversaries and the rest of the world lead in this space. This is a very dangerous conversation that Senator Elizabeth Warren is pushing, and there's a lot to unpack in those clips that you talked about. Why is it that the banks are pushing this? Why is it that there weren't any technology experts weighing in? These are really big questions that the U.S. Senate must consider before moving forward.
Frankly, we're heading into an election year. There's clearly a lot that Congress is dealing with on the funding side of the equation. Do you sense that this is still a priority? What are you hearing in terms of realistic timeline of this legislation actually moving forward?
So I think the fact that Patrick McHenry has announced that he's leaving, it increases the priority. Chairman Patrick McHenry has really taken digital assets as one of his legacy issues that he's taking on as he retires from U.S. Congress. So he has a lot riding on this bill and moving it forward and it passing, and he has, even more incentive to do so now.
Is there someone the chamber would like to see replace him on the Financial Services Committee as chair?
There's a number of members of the House Financial Services Committee that are that have been champions of this space. In terms of a new House Financial Services chairman, we want somebody that has taken the time to understand how the technology works. We don't want someone like Jamie Dimon who is proposing things that are technically impossible to implement, or Elizabeth Warren, her bill doesn't work with the technology itself. So whoever is going to serve in that role, whether it's the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee on the Senate Banking Committee or serving as the next Treasury Secretary, you need someone who understands how this technology works, because this technology is shaping the future of global finance, and if they don't understand it at a technical level, how can they lead the nation to success?
Well, and of course, there's a question of whether the next chair is even going to be a Republican, depending on what control of the House looks like. How much do you think is riding politically for the crypto industry in 2024? How crucial a year is it going to be?
It's a big year because policy is changing in real time. There's over 40 million Americans that own cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin today. And if all of those people got out and vote and made sure that we had people in office that understand this technology and want to make sure the U.S. is going to lead in this technology, we will lead the country in a much more brighter spot than where it is today.
Former Binance Chief Strategy Officer Patrick Hillman joins us now. Patrick, great to have you back on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I find this really interesting what she's done here, because I've talked to a lot of former military that are in this space now, and they were actually attracted to these Bitcoin, or rather cryptocurrency firms, because of the transparency, because you can make trades on the blockchain and you can track that, which makes it harder for a terror organization like Hamas to move money that way. You are calling what she's trying to do nonsense. Why?
Look, as you pointed out, the transparency of blockchain allows cases that used to take 5 to 6 years, like the HSBC money laundering investigation, they're now being carried out in weeks, if not days. And because we've had this evolution, we've seen a lot of some of the most preeminent experts in law enforcement and intelligence enter into the industry, which is fundamentally changing the way that cyber investigations are taking place. For the senator to go and accuse these people of being on the take, it's a slap in the face of the entire law enforcement community, not only here in the U.S., but across the globe. Because these enforcement agents are working hand in glove with law enforcement every single day to take down some of the most preeminent criminal organizations on the globe. And they're not only able to take down their currency, their cryptocurrency accounts, but they're taking down their traditional fiat accounts as well, as these massive, complex criminal networks are able to be mapped out by the blockchain.
You know, Patrick, I think there's a lot of people who look at $33 trillion in debt and there's going to be no end in sight, and they want a different pathway, whether it's gold or crypto. These are investment avenues that they've taken. And I look at Elizabeth Warren, and this is just one more, arrow in her quiver to go after crypto. She hates blockchain, she hates crypto, and she'll use whatever tool she can to attack it.
That's correct. Look, this latest bill is a poison pill for the U.S. economy and for American innovation. She has sold a bill that has been cooked over a bonfire of lies. This bill overnight will absolutely grind to a halt the entire U.S. crypto industry. It will put these draconian requirements on not only exchanges, but also on different parts of the industry that have absolutely no intersection with the consumer, such as node operators and miners. Forcing these node operators and miners to have a KYC program, it doesn't make any sense. It's impossible from a technological standpoint. And we have to keep in mind, we just learned yesterday that Senator Warren actually solicited the American Bankers Association to write this bill for her. Now, look, all's fair in love and business. I don't blame the ABA for wanting to slow down this industry. That makes sense. But for Elizabeth Warren to talk out of one side of her mouth and accuse all of these law enforcement agents of being on the take, being a part of the revolving door, while also being the loudest champion for a former SEC executive or former Goldman Sachs executive being the chairman of the SEC, it's just really hard to stomach. And there's only one person, one group that's going to benefit from this, and it is China. We are in a nuclear arms race with China over certain critical and emerging technologies, and we are falling behind because Elizabeth Warren and her cohorts are working overtime to kneecap American startups. And right now, we cannot afford to let China both own the new digital economy as well as the AI space. And listen, they're opening up an express lane in Hong Kong for crypto exchanges, and their AI researchers are not stopping to sing Kumbaya and talk about the philosophical risk to the whales that AI poses.
No, they definitely aren't. And I think you bring up a really good point about who was authoring that bill. It's important to provide the context of the stakeholders that are looking to slow these things down. So, Patrick, so great to talk to you today. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I think the other thing that is terribly important, and it maybe cuts a little bit, it cuts a little bit of a different stride than what many people I talk to in this industry are accustomed to, because they love freedom, they love liberty, and pretty much would like to be left alone. But you got to engage with us up here. You got to engage with the folks on the Hill. You got to engage with the people in the administration. And one way to really connect with the people on the Hill is to talk to their constituents. And to the extent that the industry can make clear to the broader constituency up here that this is going to allow access to banking, it's going to lower cost, it's going to do a lot of things that help the people at the lowest end of the economic pyramid here in America. I think that could be very beneficial to the industry, and I think it'll be very beneficial to my colleagues who need to hear more positive things about the industry rather than just the heavily screened anecdotes that they get in hearings that you just described. So one way I would say is a direct engagement with constituents of senators who need to understand this better, and having those constituents come and visit the senators along with leaders like yourselves would be, I think, fairly impactful.
I'd love to get your thoughts on crypto, because Jamie Dimon said if he was in charge of the government, maybe have a seat like yours, he would push to shut it down. What did you make of that? Should the government be doing more?
And Marie, I can understand why anybody at a large bank would say that. Their business model is quite different. Cryptocurrency could be a threat to a number of things that the traditional banking community is working on and puts forward. But I'm not concerned about that. We need to come back and look at this industry and maintain the innovative aspects of the cryptocurrency industry rather than push it offshore. And we've seen the problems that are created like that. We need to figure out a good way, a proper way, an appropriate way to regulate cryptocurrency here with a light enough touch that will allow us to continue to lead the way with innovation.